The name of this is Eating for Energy, Fasting for Fun. And some of you might be thinking, huh? Like, what does that mean? I know what eating for energy is, and I know that we need to be doing that, especially important this time of year as we head into the holidays with all the food temptations and all of that. But fun from fasting, and I'm here to tell you that fasting can be amazingly fun. It depends on how you look at it. So here's the thing, right? I'm Dr. Rita Marie Loscalzo, and we're here to support you in getting your best health possible. And as a health practitioner, helping people to live their best life possible by identifying the imbalances and all that. So, one of the most popular practices these days is actually fasting. And I got into fasting, oh, blah, 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 blah. 37 years ago was when I did my first fast. 37 years ago. Many of you aren't even 37 years old, but I have definitely done that. And a lot of fasts. I've done a lot of fasts. I've guided people through a lot of fasts. And what I find is most people don't say to me, oh my gosh, fasting is so much fun. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about eating first, and then we'll talk about fasting, because at this time of year, it gets a little bit challenging if you've been on like an intermittent fasting regime, and maybe you've been on a regime where you fast 24 hours a week and then you do like 16-hour fasts almost every day. And then all of a sudden, the food temptations are here. You're going to parties, or you're going to family members' houses, or you have these celebration things, and you're finding it difficult to stick with a fasting regime. So I'm going to talk to you about that. But first, let's talk about eating for energy. So, eating for energy is a process of putting foods into the body that fully nourish you on a cellular level. So, I will say right up front that Christmas cookies and candies, apple pies and pumpkin pies, the way they are made in our society, are not going to energize you. In fact, they are going to deplete you. They're nutrient depleted. They've got white flour and sugar, which actually drain the nutrients that your mitochondria need to make energy. So when you're going out there and you're drinking the Christmas punch, I'm going to grab some water. Excuse me there. You're drinking the Christmas punch. You're eating the apple pie, which of course is loaded with sugar, white flour crust, gluten. Excuse me. Sorry, I've never had this happen during a live before. All right. So here I am. I'm real. The thing is, when you're trying to keep up with the family and you want to feel like you fit in, and you go ahead and you eat the apple pie with the white flour gluten crust, even if it's a gluten-free crust, it's still going to help kind of cause your blood sugar to go up. It's got the sugar in it. It's got the apples. Yay, apples, fruit, right? But not in the way that it's being done. When you eat those foods, they deplete your energy. So, how do you eat for energy? Well, first of all, if you are going to go to a party and you know that there's going to be a lot of tempting foods that are normally not in your regime, you can go ahead and eat before you go. That may seem counterintuitive. Well, I'm going to a party. Why would I eat before I go? You eat before you go so that you can nourish your cells, so you can have the energy, and you have the fortitude to be able to say, no, thanks. No, thanks, because you're already full. When you go to these parties and you've had a busy day and it's in the evening, and then all of a sudden you go there and you're starving, and most of the foods are outside of your regime, it's pretty hard. I mean, unless you've got the strength of a saint, it's really hard to say no, unless you've been doing it for a really long time. So eating for energy, what does that mean? Well, before you go, make yourself a big salad, big plate of steamed vegetables, a green smoothie, something that's loaded with nutrition, something that's loaded with chlorophyll and vitamins and minerals so that you can resist the temptations. And even if you do eat a bite of this or a bite of that, you're going to notice that it doesn't affect you the same way as it would on an empty stomach. It's kind of like when you go, when you drink on an empty stomach, we always tell people don't drink. If you're going to have a glass of champagne, don't do it on an empty stomach. It's going to go right to your head. This is the same with the food. If you go to a party and you reach for the Christmas cookie and you reach for the little candy and you reach for a piece of apple pie and you reach for, I don't know, the squash casserole that's loaded with breadcrumbs, it's going to affect your blood sugar in such a way that it goes way up and then it comes down. And as soon as it goes up and then comes back down again, guess what? You're going to have so little ability to resist temptation after that. Because once your blood sugar goes up and then comes back down, you're like, you're toast, basically. It causes you to have food cravings. So eating for energy requires that you go for it. You go for eating before you go, having a full stomach so that you can resist, and bringing food to the party. What a novel concept. Well, most things are potluck, and even if they're not, you always can bring something that you can eat that's loaded with the good stuff that you normally would be eating. Vegetables and maybe some whole grains if you tolerate whole grains, a fruit platter, whatever it might be that is within your dietary that helps you to be supportive. You bring it. When I would go to parties with my kiddos are grown up now, but when I would go to parties with my kiddos, I was not going to take a chance that there was going to be food there that we would actually want them to eat. And my kids were so used to eating for energy, eating good quality foods, that if we went to a party and we just chanced it, they would be like, Mommy, there's nothing here to eat. Mom, there's nothing here to eat. So I wouldn't do that to them. I would always bring food for me and for them, right? If you've been doing healthy eating, if you've been doing gluten-free, you're off dairy, you're off sugar, and you're really looking at eating a whole foods, primarily plant diet, you go to these parties, you're not going to find much to eat. If you've been doing it for a really long time, maybe it's easy for you to be strong and not eat. But for the most part, it's challenging. It's really challenging when you get there and you're starving, right? And then you eat it. I had an experience recently. I was at an event and we had this like 7-8 course meal, and they said, oh, they had a vegetarian version, and oh yeah, we can do it gluten-free and dairy-free and all this. And I'm like, great. So they brought stuff out and I'd always ask what's in it, and it seemed okay. But I ate a few things that I normally wouldn't. One of them had a little like a fruit puree kind of sauce around it. Another was actually corn chowder. It was just blended corn with some amazing spices. I was just going to take a tiny bite. I took a tiny bite and it was so good. And I was hungry because these portions were tiny that I ate the whole bowl. And then I ate, all the rest of the courses. And I checked my blood sugar when I got back to my room and it had gone high and I was starving. Like I just ate an 8-course meal. And of course, there were tiny portions, but I wanted more food. It had thrown me off my new normal regime. And I suddenly had all this grain and sugary things in my body that caused my blood sugar to go whoop and then back down. And then I had lost some of the control that I normally would have. So be careful about that. You might think, oh, I can just have a bite here, I can have a bite there. Not necessarily. It's really important. Make it a point in your life to eat for energy, to eat for health. Eating is not an entertainment, even though we treat it that way. But guess what? You can still eat really good stuff and you can get into the festivities. I did a podcast, not a podcast, YouTube last week that was about that, about some of the foods that you can eat. We have recipe guides. I'll put a link in the chat below, how you can get access to all my recipe guides that are loaded with Christmas cookies, Hanukkah food, et cetera, that you can actually make all these just decadently delicious foods that are going to supply you with energy. So that's the eating for energy part. And that's so important because when you get off course, it's hard to get back on course. And it's not usually until January 1, when all of a sudden, you got the extra pounds on, you're feeling kind of tired. You go, okay, New Year, time for New Year's resolutions. And we know that they don't work, but it's really hard. Why do that to yourself? Why not learn to make really decadent things that support you, that are similar to what you're used to and what these parties are serving, but they're helping you to eat for energy. Let's get to the fasting part. And it sounds bizarre. Fasting for fun. Why would you fast for fun? Here's the thing. Sometimes when you fast after you've indulged, you just feel so good. It's like going on vacation, right? All of a sudden, you're bloated and you're gassy and you're full and you're not feeling so hot. And you just let yourself rest, right? You let yourself rest. You leave the food for another time and you decide on a period of time. Now, some of you who are seasoned fasters may go for a 24-hour fast or even a 36 or 48-hour fast. But some of you just might like skip breakfast, skip dinner, right? Skip a meal so that you have like 16 hours of fasting. It's amazing what you can do to your body in that time of not putting food in. Your ketones tend to go up, and ketones help you burn fat. So suddenly you're dropping weight with very little effort. Your body's just going into fat burning mode, right? Suddenly you're feeling like, oh, I can handle this. It might be hard at the beginning, but it feels so good to get back on track. So what do you do if you've gone out to a party and you've overindulged? You make a decision that you're going to skip a meal the next day. And maybe it's breakfast or maybe it's dinner, right? But going without will help to support you in burning fat, in increasing ketones, which help you to burn fat, in decreasing your insulin levels, lowering your blood sugar levels, and just overall feeling good so that you're ready to have fun, so that you have the energy to have fun. I created this little program that we're going to be offering in January called Fasting While Feasting. And some people say, I can't go a long period of time without eating. Great. There was a researcher, his name is Walter Longo. He's from Italy. And he did a lot of studies and a lot of testing. And he determined that with a certain macro micronutrient ratio that you do for a certain number of calories for a few days, like 5 days was what he tested. By the end of that, you had the results as if you just had a 5-day fast. So I'm like, that's kind of interesting. Well, he had created a powder, which makes it real easy for people to do. But I'm not a big fan of powders. Plus, I don't like the way they taste. I want real food. So I created this thing called Fasting While Feasting. And it's a 5-day program where I give you the meals that are mapped out to be exactly how he mapped it out. And we've taken a few hundred people, maybe more than that so far through that program. And by the end of the 5 days, they've dropped some extra pounds. Their blood glucoses are going down into normal ranges, even if they were high to begin with. Their ketones are elevated and they feel good, right? So you can get the metabolic effects, all the cleaning and balancing effects of fasting while you continue to eat meals that are satisfying. And the meals that I put together are very satisfying. In fact, people would say to me, do I have to eat everything on the list? I'm like, well, it's helpful, but if you can't, you can't. Don't force yourself. And what we found is it made it easier and easier day by day for people to stick to this regime and get the benefits of fasting without actually having to go without food, which is really kind of cool, right? If you can get the benefits of fasting without actually having to fast. Well, he calls it the fasting mimicking diet. I call it fasting while feasting because the meals I put together to do this are like you're feasting. So keep your eyes open. Next month, we'll be sharing how you can become a part of that with us. But for now, I highly recommend that you get some good resources. You can visit my blog over the last month or so. We've been putting in holiday recipes, things that are similar to what you might be used to, like the gingerbread cookies and stuffing, holiday stuffing, things like that. So go out to drrenamarie.com/blog and check out some of those recipes. I'll also put a link in the chat below, in the comments, about the special that we're doing right now, where you can get access to all my recipe guides. And several of them are holiday recipe guides. But in addition, you've got recipe guides that will take you through next year. There's breakfast and lunch and all that. So learn how to eat to support your mitochondria. Learn how to eat to keep your thyroid humming and buzzing so that you have lots of energy and you're burning fat. Learn how to eat to make sure that you're not stressing yourselves out. Your cells need good support, and especially at this time of year, we're starting to get into what's called the cold and flu season. Why? In my opinion, the cold and flu season follows all these holidays, starting with, what did we start with? Halloween. Then we go to Thanksgiving. Then we go to Christmas and Hanukkah and Kwanzaa and whatever else. And then we end up with New Year's Eve, which is a drink fest. Not good for you. No wonder everybody's having colds and flus in January. It's from the body's immune system being depleted. So if you want to stay healthy through the holidays, actually, that's another way where fasting comes in and becomes fun. You can stay healthy when everybody else is getting sick because you've eaten for energy, you've eaten whole, fresh foods, and you've done fasting, intermittent fasting, or maybe extended fasting if you're up to it. And you feel good. You have enough energy to go out hiking, to finish, doing the snowblower, and then have fun with your kids, with your grandkids, with your partner, whatever it might be. We can have fun when we have good energy. We can have fun when we are clear in our heads, clear that our bodies are getting the nourishment they need. It's not worth it to just have temporary fun of, oh, that cookie was so good. And then, days even sometimes of cravings and of low energy. So I just want to share with you this message. Take care of you. Don't let holidays, oh, I need to celebrate, get in the way. You can still celebrate and have fun with food, with good, healthy food. And you can intermittently fast. You can add fasting to the mix so that you get those ketones, burning that excess fat, so that you can get those glucose levels and the insulin levels in a normal range. And you can overall feed your endocrine system. So subscribe, go down below or follow. And I'm Dr. Rita Marie, and we'll see you the next time. Thank you so much.